right now about the strike of the members of the National Association of Resident Doctors, and the conversation doesn't seem to be abating as yet, as you can see here from the Minister of Health. We're having long conversations, and it would seem like, well, it's the long conversations, unproductive long conversations, so to speak, that brought us here in the first place. And I'm just wondering, Maupe, good morning. I'm just wondering, I mean, what kind of conversations we should be expecting, you know, or how should this even taper on? Well, you're not in the health sector, you're in the communication business, but I'm just wondering, maybe is it a failure of communication, or I don't even know how to put it.
You know, I sincerely wish that I could help with answers on that particular one. We have stayed on this doctor strike issue for a while now. We've even done a position on it. Very rarely do we give positions on issues, but as a station, as a company, as journalists, we have given a position on this particular matter, asking that sincerity comes to play here. That we should prioritize the lives of our citizens. Just going through some posts on social media this morning, and somebody just sadly reported that somebody died in her house. And this is as a result of the strike in doctors, or the strike of doctors, because they took the patients to the hospital and there was nobody on call to attend to the patient. Don't forget that after NARD went on strike, there was also a strike by the consultants. Now, we do not know how far that one went. Perhaps there was some resolution to their own clamor. We didn't get an update on that, maybe because we didn't follow up, or maybe there was a follow-up, I just didn't follow up on that. But I do know that I think as of Monday or so, they did give a 24-hour window for the federal government to take their own issues on board and try to resolve them. How far that conversation went is yet to be seen, or I'm yet to see. Let me be more specific now.
Well, the update on that,
knows, maybe my guest here.
Well, just before that, no, the update really is that the members of MDCAN didn't embark on that strike because I think along the line there was some kind of conversation with government, and it was resolved that, you know what, maybe we should, you know, hold on for a while. There is some ongoing conversation with MDCAN, between MDCAN and government on that one, so perhaps that's why they are holding fire for now, so to speak. But how come we can't persuade the younger doctors? I guess that's where the conversation would begin, Malcolm.
Well, I don't think the younger doctors are so young, but hey, what do I know? Let me speak with those who should know. My guest here, Dr. Mohammed Askira, is the former president of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. Thank you very much. Welcome our viewers. Thank you, Mope. I wanted to just ask you, when the association, NARD, is referred to as young doctors, do you guys feel young, or do you think that that's also affecting the manner in which the association is treated? By and large, saying they are young doctors is not out of place, because they occupy it's a hierarchy. Okay. The medical profession and practice goes in a hierarchy where you have houseman who has just finished medical school and the house officer, who is always the first on call, that first comes in contact with the patient. Then you have the registrar, then you have the senior registrar, then you have the consultant special grade 2 and consultant special grade 1. Therefore, the resident doctors actually are the ones that are within this cadre, the lower cadre. So calling them young
by virtue of the professional experience is so much in place, but does not mean that they are actually a group of very young people. No, they are actually a group of younger people in the profession, in their professional calling, in their various specialties. They are specializing, and they are the ones that will become consultants after fulfilling all the criteria for the specialization. So I don't think there's anything wrong in calling someone young in the profession, because most of them actually they have been within their specialty for a couple of years, because we have the older ones who are the consultants and the senior consultants.
Well, I'm sure that that's one of the reasons why I don't know. I was asking that question because I figured whether it had sometimes any influence in terms of how government at all levels, because it's not only at the federal level that we have seen the NARD go on strike. We've seen them go on strike also at the state level sometimes, and it would seem that if you were to take an aggregate of all the doctor strike action perhaps that we've seen in the last 5 years, I think that of the NARD has been that which has been most pronounced in terms of the number of times that they have gone on strike. Do you think that their being young in the profession accounts for that?
No. Actually, the major reason for the resident doctors going on strike actually is multifactorial. However, the resident doctors actually make up the bulk of the medical manpower, because majority of the medical doctors are within that group, within that range of below the rank of the consultants. We have, if you compare the ratio, the number of consultants and resident doctors, you'll find that the resident doctors in court, the younger doctors comprises the large number of the medical workforce. And this large number of medical workforce, you know, as you grow older in the profession, so many things come into play. But the problem we have is that whenever you hear strike, most often than not, is when the government part most often fails to do what is needful. I think there is a particular mentality in the system, based on my interaction with many people in position of authority in government, do not have a clear idea of how the health system works. They do not even understand how the hospitals are run. And this creates a lot of issues because they think that the hospitals can be run like any administrative institution, any parastatals. But the way the hospitals are run and the way the medical practice is being, the practice of medicine is something that needs a health administrator or a professional that really understands the working to run it. For instance now, I'll give you an example. Someone will now just wake up and say, the resident doctors are students in training. They are just like any other students. But that is not it. Actually, they are undergoing training. But at the same time, the training is well interwoven and intercalated with in-depth research and service delivery. Because the hierarchy of medical practice is in such a way that checks and balances are placed so that the patient that comes, the ailment that the patient comes with, nothing is left out. So he will see at different levels of care, different level of expertise within the practice. The younger one will see him first and immediately will now evaluate and still re-evaluate with immediate senior colleague, then another senior colleague, then the consultant will come in, then the senior consultant grade 2 will come in, then the specialist grade 1 will come in. This is the way the medical care is given to the patient. For each patient has to go through this hierarchy. And the reason for going through this hierarchy is that, you know, we are not voodoos. We are not doing jazz. We are applying science and in-depth knowledge so that you are dealing with life here. And in dealing with life, you want to make sure that, you subject it to appropriate scientific medical scrutiny so that you come to the appropriate diagnosis and you institute the appropriate care. And through this process, because they work as a unit, this hierarchy works as a unit. Through this process, the younger ones will now learn from the input of the senior colleagues. And the senior colleagues have now given a chance for the younger one also to exhibit what they have learned. And the patient is at large receiving the best of care with the best of safety. This is how the practice is. So outside there, I came to realize when I interface with some people in government, some administrators that are maybe dealing with the budget, dealing with recruitment, I came to realize that they hardly understand the intricacies. And this is one of the reasons why we have a lot of bottlenecks. So they think they recruit into the hospital just the way they recruit people into other sector of the economy. For instance now, I can be a CMD with a hospital and I have a unit of anesthesiologists taking care of an ICU. I have a houseman there, I have a registrar, senior registrar, and a consultant manning the ICU. And because of the issue of brain drain now, people are going out of the country for so many reasons. And doctors especially and other healthcare workers are going out in their droves. And because of the obnoxious climate created by this, our system, many people are leaving. So the patriotic ones that are left behind to serve the people, the patriotic one, I mean it, the patriotic one, they are...
Are you suggesting that those who are leaving are unpatriotic?
No, they are leaving because they got to leave. But the ones, the ones that decided to stay are more patriotic.
Okay.
It takes a lot of patriotism to stay within the system when you have an option of going to a better climate, where you can practice in a better climate. You can go to UK, US, Canada, and even Saudi Arabia has a better climate than our system here. So what actually happens is that you will experience that at a point, a consultant special will leave this country to Saudi Arabia, or a senior registrar or a registrar will leave because he got to leave. The emolument, the conditions of service are not good. So what happens is that I came to understand that the head of service office, the budget office, the Federal Character Commission had put in place bureaucracy for recruitment and replacement into the system. So the hospital is now left without an anesthesiologist. Or in a day you'll see the whole team will leave to Canada. Today there is an advert that next week Saudi Arabia Ministry of Health is coming to conduct interview to take Nigerian doctors away. So in a day you will see the whole team that is manning the ICU will be leaving for Saudi Arabia. What will the CMD do at that point? The CMD will have to now start applying for waiver to employ. Applying, after even getting the waiver at a point, he has to apply for revalidation of that waiver. So it will take him a cycle of between 8 to 16 months to get these waivers, going through this bureaucracy. So these things make them at times to even employ. After employing, it will take a long time before they were enrolled into IPPIS, before they will start getting salaries, sometimes 3, 4, 5 months. So the doctors that are working with them, that are serving, that have agreed to even take the employment rather than going to Saudi Arabia, they come in to fill in these spaces. At a time, they will not be paid salaries for months. And this will now serve as a reason for agitation. And the agitation, the senior colleagues generally, in a family, you will find that the older parents will provide the wisdom, but the agitation is coming from the combatants, just like the military. The generals will give the direction sometimes, and the combatants will be on the field to do the real action. So you always often than not see the resident doctors making the agitation, because definitely younger person has a shorter fuse, and they are just raising a family. They may not have had enough savings looking at our economy, and you are subjecting them to a calamitous economic situation by not giving them salaries or by cutting their salaries arbitrarily. Sometimes it happens. So these are the reasons why you find the younger ones in the forefront of the agitation. It's not that because they are young. Most often the reason for the strike comes as a result of unfortunate policies of government.
Well, you spoke of older colleagues. Let's quickly go to Lagos and take this to an older colleague who should be in our Lagos studio. Over now to you, Ayo.
Thank you, Mark. Well, the older colleague has been listening intently, and that person is Dr. Francis Duile, who is former national president, Nigerian Medical Association, and he joins us right here, as well as Dr. Akim Akinwale, who is associate professor, Department of Employment Relations and Human Resource Management, University of Lagos. He joins us virtually. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of our conversation this morning. Well, let me begin with you, Dr. Fadile. It will seem like there is a lot more to the issues in the health sector that meets the eye, going by what we have heard from Dr. Askira in our conversation so far. You've been NMA president. Do you think the authorities are aware of such complexities, both of infrastructure, of men, and of resources, and yet here we are?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's important for us to know that many of those people at that high level may not be aware of the complexity. But I think I will not agree that it is totally strange to all of them, because the health minister, the Minister of State for Health, they are medical doctors. The CMDs are medical doctors. Even the Minister of Labor and Employment is also a medical doctor. So I think we have a fair number of people who are at that level that should understand. However, I think the government, by its mode of action, is slow to get things done. And when we are talking about health, it goes beyond following the bureaucracy. Dr. Askera painted a scenario where anesthesiologists in a particular institution, if they leave the employment, if we have to wait for another 3 to 6 months before we can get them back, certainly a lot of people will die, because that facility or that opportunity will not be available in those hospitals. And I must tell you, whereas you see average of 10 patients a day, and you need, for example, 20 or let's say 10 doctors in a team to be able to service those patients from time to time. By the time 5 of them leaves, don't forget we do call to cover 24 hours. By the time 5 of them leaves and you don't have replacement, what that means is that the other 5 must cover for the entire duty post. I can tell you there are some periods in which we have consultants having to stay practically all through the weekends, operating, taking care of patients, and they do not have any time to rest. Sometimes, some of them, we have to ask patients to wait for some time, and those patients will not understand what is happening. All they will start crying is that we are here, there are no doctors who are attending to us. So the problem is about proper planning. It's about the premium we put into health. But I want to digress a little bit. Health is not about teaching hospital. Health is not about the tertiary tier of health delivery. We have the primary health care, we have the secondary health care, before we talk about the tertiary health care. And what we have seen consistently in health is that in Nigeria, primary health care is almost gone, totally out of the radar. Because if you look all through the local governments, you barely see 10% of them being viable. What it means is that those who are supposed to be taken care of at that primary health care center will have to move to secondary health care. Secondary health care are being taken by the state government. Most state governments have abandoned the health system. And what did they do? Because the federal government saw the need to take care of the health of its citizens, they instituted federal medical centers in all states. And because they have that, a lot of states have abandoned their secondary health care centers. Many general hospitals are not having proper number of staff, especially in terms of highly skilled staff, doctors, nurses.
And what is the consequence of that? Are those authorities aware of the consequences?
They are. And even where they have employed so few, I can tell you that they are not paying them even their normal salary up to the 11 months, 12 months, 5 months, or so, whatever it is.
It then raises a question in my mind. My apologies. Let me ask Dr. Akinwale. It then raises a question on my mind, Dr. Akinwale, about what they call dignity of labor. Do you even see that from all the two medical doctors who we have listened to have spoken about? Do you see a dignity of labor being respected by the authorities?
Thank you very much. Well, the answer is very clear, and the answer is no, because the current situation is a battle for safety and a battle for survival. Safety of the medical profession and survival of medical health practitioners. In this case, resident doctors. So, and also on the side of the government and other agents of state system, you can see loopholes in planning and implementation, because the medical residency training is protected by legislation. So that means the resident doctors have expectations as established by the Residency Training Act of 2018. And so the agent of state system in the Ministry of Health and in other parts of the state system are not implementing to the letter the provision of that regulation, which is part of the reasons for the current battle for safety of the profession and battle for survival of medical practitioners. So I think that's the way I would respond to your question.
There is such a thing. We'll come to more details about that one, especially as it concerns what you call safety and survival. I'll probably have to ask the other doctors that one. But in terms of taking care of staff, there is such a body in the Federal Civil Service as Servicom. Servicom is supposed to be, a kind of feedback mechanism, so to speak, to ensure that the wheel of bureaucracy moves smoothly and as fast as it can. And then there is also supposed to be some kind of collaboration between ministries, departments, and agencies across platforms to ensure that that wheel continues to move as it ought to. For instance, there is the National Commission for Salaries, there is the Ministry of Finance, there is the Office of the Accountant General, And of course, there is the Ministry of Health, which are supposed to ensure that the doctors, the medical practitioners, the healthcare givers get their dues as they give their dues. In your opinion, do you think that will is moving the way it ought to move, or it's broken down?
Also, the answer is no. So all stakeholders are supposed to work in synergy to ensure that the workforce in all the ministries are well taken care of. So, but you have a situation in which the officials in a particular ministry do not properly communicate their practices or actions or decisions with stakeholders in other ministry. And in that way, they leave room for crisis. When you look at what triggered this current strike, the non-payment of allowances and salaries is not new. It has been there. And these doctors have been coping with expectations that these allowances would be paid. But you will realize that there was information that a memo came from the meeting held by commissioners for health in various states, and a memo was raised through the office of the chief of staff. So the doctors were not carried along in that meeting, and possibly other stakeholders were not involved in that meeting. And this raised a lot of agitation, a lot of worries, which was part of the reasons for the current disputes, which is unexpected anyway, which is unnecessary anyway. So stakeholders in different ministries need to work together to create a synergy in managing effectively the workforce in different ministry. In this case, Ministry of Health.
That, especially since we have a former president of the NMA here, perhaps there's been ways that that's been handled before now. But we'll take that on when we return from this break. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Dr. Francis Duile, as well as Dr. Akim Akinwale, are still here with us in Lagos. Well, Dr. Duile, one wonders, what do you think is missing right now? From all that you heard Dr. Akinwale say, one of the reasons for the breakdown of communication would, breakdown of agreement, so to speak, would be that relevant agencies are not collaborating well enough. Is it for you a challenge of collaboration between the relevant stakeholders, the Wages Commission, the Finance Ministry, Accountant General's Office, and as well as the Ministry of Health, or it's a lack of will or unwillingness?
Well, I think it goes beyond that. I think it's more of an insincerity on the part of government. Let me state one fact. The resident doctors today are not asking for salary increment. They are not asking for anything new. There is nothing new on the table. What they are asking is something that they have gone on strike for, they have had an agreement on, and after waiting for close to 3 months, despite all the things that they have signed a memorandum of understanding MOU. After that, they have signed a memorandum of action, and they have waited. I heard what the president just stated in the short clip, and I can tell you, if you are now coming back after about 3, 4, 5 months, and you say we want to verify what have you been doing, it shows that it is not even lack of will; it is insincerity on the part of government. And I think it is important for us to hold the government responsible for what is happening. If the government decides today that they want to clear all the backlog, that they want to write all the ways or to follow the agreement they have. If you are given 2 months, 2 weeks, and you have had a whole 3 months and you have not done anything, how am I going to be sure that you actually mean what you are saying? So I think it is more of insincerity. They said that some people are on give meets. They want them to go to IPPIS. If IPPIS is supposed to be an improvement on a salary structure, should workers who had delivered their professional duties diligently be denied for 3, 4, 5 months? I, as a civil servant, I can tell you I cannot live 3 months legitimately without having a salary. It's really, really difficult for them. So I think the sincerity or the will should come from the government, and we don't need to talk so much about this.
But you know that the government has already taken the NARD to courts, to the industrial court, and already willing to initiate the no work, no pay rule.
Well, I've had this no work, no pay rule. When I was a resident, I can tell you up to today, I have a salary of job that I did, and I wasn't paid. It was because of shortfall. That is around 2005. We didn't get that money up to today. They are also talking about 2014, 2015, 2016 shortfall. They have not been paid. If you see, when you come to equity, you must come with clean hands. If you have not paid for work done, what right have you to say that you want to bring up no work, no pay? I find it very interesting. If, for example, you have not paid me for 3 months, how do you expect me to come to the hospital, to come to work? Do you expect me to start trekking for 10 kilometers? How do you expect me to take care of my children? You see, we have to show that we are humane, and we must show interest in others. The doctors, if they are not asking for anything new. They are not asking for salary increment. They are asking for pay us what is in the Medical Residency Act. Pay us our normal salary. And I don't think, sincerely, no work, no pay, coming at this time, it is of ill effect.
Okay. Well, I guess Mokwe has some questions for you, or taking it back there. Mokwe.
Well, thank you, Ayo. Let me quickly bring this to our guest here. I think it's without saying that you'll certainly be in support of what Dr. Faduyile has said. Let me ask you, whether or not you have also reviewed, because yes, indeed, people have talked about how government indeed should, visit this matter with sincerity. But as a doctor, do you continue to worry about the instrument with which doctors press home their demands? Do you think that there is another way around it, considering the number of lives that could be lost as a result of this strike action?
Thank you very much. I think over time, we have come to realize that the truth is many people in position of authority in government, they do not appreciate, they do not understand what is called constructive engagement. They do not appreciate what is called dialogue. They do not understand what is called peaceful engagement to understand our plight. Let me be frank with you. Just like Chief Faduyile said, a memorandum of action was, because of these issues in the impasse with NARD, a memorandum of action was signed at the instance of the Labour Minister, where all stakeholders were brought in and NARD suspended their strike based on the fact that action will come from both sides. NARD will suspend the strike action, while the government functionaries will now pay the backlog of these salaries, enroll those resident doctors that have been working for months without, being enrollment into IPPIS platform, and also pay the medical residency training fund, which was already captured in the budget. We are not even talking about state governments where doctors and other health workers work for 19 months in some states without salaries. We are talking about federal government today because they told us that it is not, the state's issues are not within their purview. Now let's talk about what is within the purview of the federal government. As the chief conciliator of the federal government, the Minister of Labor convoked the conciliation. A memorandum of action was signed in April that, okay, resident doctors, go and suspend your strike. Government timeline, actionable time plan. Go and do this, this, and that. Within 2, 3, 4 weeks, everything will be done. Let me tell you one scary fact that was discovered by resident doctors, that the medical residency training fund that is supposed to be in the 2021 budget, after that conciliation, it was discovered that it was not even captured in 2021 budget. It has to now be taken into the currently signed supplementary budget. If they had not agitated, it will go unnoticed because somebody refused or willingly did not do his job. After a memorandum of action, the resident doctors that were captured on the Give Me platform, those that had backlog of months of salaries, because the Give Me platform, the non-regular so-called, it was with the CMDs, but the government centralized it. After centralizing, it took 5, 7 months in some hospital, 4 months in other hospital, without the government paying the doctors while they do the work, saying that they were trying to verify the workforce in the platform. So after the memorandum of action, we agreed, verified. They verified and paid the backlog. And to enroll them, then a circular came from the head of service that they should stop the process of the memorandum of action. And that was what stalled the memorandum, that a bureaucratic process has not been followed, according to the head of service. So in the process of following the bureaucratic process, the resident doctors were patient, still waiting for it, 2, 3, 4 months again. Salary is not paid for these people. And they've been engaging. The president of resident doctors have been in Abuja, moving from one office to another. I did that when I was the president of NRD in 2015, 2016. You'll be going from one office to another. The bureaucratic bottlenecks are there in every office, preventing the flow. So the resident doctors gave a warning a month before today. They now sent a warning that they are given 1 month to government to sort out all these things contained in the memorandum of action. Otherwise, they will resume their strike. After 1 month, nothing was done. The Minister of Labor now invited them just a few weeks to the expiration of the 1 month, just a few days. They came, they said, fine, within those days, if things were done, fine. But after a week, nothing was done. And they had their general meeting and they took decision to resume back because they understood that people in government do not understand any language except a language of strike. If you want anything to be done for you as your welfare, as your entitlement, I came to realize that it's only when the resident doctor says strike, then you see people running helter-skelter trying to sort out things. Look at it. When was the last time we had a meeting at the National Assembly concerning the matter? Up till today, many things could not be implemented because many officers have not done their responsibilities since April. And let me tell you, the Office of the Head of Service came to tell us that this is a government of law, everything must follow due process. Do you know what the due process? Let me tell you, there is an instance with a hospital that the hospital realized that they don't have manpower. So they need to employ doctors, nurses, and so on and so forth. They now wrote for a waiver for employment. Since last May, they started the process. As at today, as I'm talking to you, they got the waiver because this strike started. Do you know what happened? An officer, a particular officer, after approval of the waiver revalidation, a particular officer in the Office of the Head of Service sat, a particular director sat on the waiver, that he will not give the waiver until his candidates are captured in the employment of that hospital. How do you expect the CMDs to run a hospital like this? And sometimes they will even come with a replacement that our 12 doctors have left the country, or they are resident doctors that are in one stage of the program and they have moved to the next stage. You have to fill in the gap. We have to replace them. They will take it to these government functionaries that are supposed to do the checks and balances. They will tell them, you need 12 to replace 12? No, we'll give you 5. They'll cut and give him 5. How do you expect the hospitals to run like this? So in the process, the whole thing now comes down to the resident doctors. Why? Because if I'm a resident doctor and I have my consultant, 1 consultant and 5 or 6 of us residents working with him, then 3 residents left this country or left a particular stage of the program to another, and you have not replaced them. Our consultant is there. So ourselves and the consultant will have to take the backlog, the workload of those that have left, because replacement was not done. Somebody somewhere in Abuja is sitting on a waiver that he wants his clan without even, they are not even competent for the work. He wants them to fill in a space. So this, their so-called law and order, this bureaucratic process, it is actually laden with a lot of irregularities and corruption. And it is the reason why...
Dr. Askira, I know the scenario which you paint is, very worrisome indeed. And I think that there has been talk around those who are responsible for, for not living up to government side. There have been calls that those people also be held responsible and held accountable, for the current strike action which doctors have embarked on. But we don't know how far that is going to go. But we're totally out of time, sadly. We have to thank you for coming on the program this morning. I really have more questions to ask you because you didn't quite answer my question as to what should happen with strikes, considering the fact that we are losing lives. But thank you so much for your contribution this morning. Dr. Mohammed Askira is the former president of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors. Let me quickly take this to Lagos now. Ayo.
Thank you very much, Mark. Dr. Fadile, let me ask you, do you see an end in sight to this strike anytime soon? What should we do now if we're going to stop this?
Thank you very much. I think we need to do a round table conference. We need to sit down. The government needs to come clean. And I'm very sure that the resident doctors and the medical professionals have empathy of the people. We are willing to come back to work. They are willing to come back to work anytime. And that is why you see at every stage, once they give them some assurances, they do not wait for it to be effected. They go back to work. So I think what the government needs to do is to call, let them discuss. And if we see genuine reason, if we see if there are genuine steps, I believe that a lot of things will happen. The medical consultants too, they have not had their grievances taken care of. But they give another 4 weeks window, which we hope that the government will latch upon and get some respite to the people. I think we need the government, the ministries, to come clean and let us. I can tell you, we have a lot of people dying, even doctors, during this strike period. So it's not a palatable thing. We really need to sit down together and get things done.
Dr. Akinwale, this is all about men and machines, but speak to the men part. You've talked about the fact that there is a need for collaboration, more collaboration with between the stakeholders, ministries, departments, and agencies. But given the sentiments expressed by Dr. Askira, how do you see government taking on the bureaucratic network, bottleneck in the system to speed things up? Do you think an ad hoc committee needs to be set up?
Well, I think what you are saying is directly in line with what the Minister of Labor and Employment has done. The minister has transferred or reported the matter to the National Industrial Court. And this is quite strange because the resident doctors are supposed to be the ones to take the matter to court because an established agreement has been breached. But this time around, the minister's action should be commended because it appears that the Minister of Labor and Employment is interested in resolving the matter as soon as possible. So the minister has stepped some stages in the established procedure for dispute management. You know, you have the mediation, you have the conciliation, you have the arbitration before the court. But from the initial meetings and discussion that was ongoing, the minister realized that it appears there was a deadlock. And to break that, the minister transferred the dispute to National Industrial Court. And of course, it is expected that I'm also surprised that at the last appearance in court, the officials of the Ministry of Labor and Employment were not found in court. And that's quite strange. And that also raises a question on the commitment of the minister. Because on the one leg, the minister shows commitment in resolving this dispute by taking the matter to National Industrial Court. On another angle, there was a non-appearance when the court hearing was taking place. And for that reason, the court was adjourned till September 15. So, on the part of the Ministry of Labor and Employment, I think more proactive actions, more commitment is required. Then, on the side of the resident doctors, I want to say this, and I know they will not like this. Really, doctors are not supposed to go on strike. It's against the ethic of medical profession. Doctors need to show full commitment to Hippocratic oaths because life is sacrosanct. And the current situation is a quagmire, and this is at variance with international labor standard. I know doctors do not like this, but they are aware of the fact that hospital is in the list of essential services. So, by virtue of that, all the workers in the essential services are not supposed to go on strike, because if they go on strike, the life of the people, the well-being of the people will be in danger. So, for that reason, really, the strike should be considered, and the court's judgment should resolve the matter, because once there is what is called the dispute of rights, if there's an established agreement or established memorandum of understanding or action, that forms a basis upon which legal action can be taken against a party who is taking an
Dr. Akinwale, my sincere apologies. Yes. We seem to have run out of time, but you know, that part where you talk about essential services and all, I'm wondering what the law says about the authorities ensuring that essential services do not get to the point where they have to go on strike. If the system says they shouldn't go on strike, then the system should also ensure that you have no reason to. That's, I mean, should be a given. But then for now, we have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning. Dr. Akim Akinwale is Associate Professor, Department of Employment Relations and Human Resource Management, University of Lagos. He joined us along with Dr. Francis Fadele, who is a former national president of the Nigerian Medical Association. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this morning. Well, Sunrise Daily continues after now with something equally interesting. Stay with us.